This is LBC, leading Britain's conversation. With Ask Boris. Mayor of London Boris Johnson takes your calls. With Nick Ferrari at breakfast. Call 0345 6060 973. Tweet at LBC. Text 84850. This is Ask Boris on LBC.
Good morning, everybody. It's 9 o'clock on Tuesday, the 7th of October. This is Boris Johnson bringing you your latest edition of Ask Boris on LBC. I'm here for the next 45 minutes taking your calls. This is your chance to put any question you like to me. I'll do my best to answer. As usual, I've got my trusty helpmeet, Mr. Nick Ferrari, on hand. The numbers for you to get your questions on the air: 0345 6060 973, or email boris@lbc.co.uk. Don't forget, you can watch Ask Boris in high definition on the website. Straight to our first caller, Stuart in Hendon. Stuart.
Good morning, Boris.
Good morning, sir.
You'll be missed when you go as mayor.
Oh, you're kind to say so. It's a long time to go, though. I've still got 20 months or something like that of hard yakka, as they say in Australia.
Well, the list of the lot that going for your job is not very inviting, I'll tell you that much. But,
well, will you wait and see?
Is it not sheer common sense, in the light of the Ebola outbreak, which is a 96-97% fatality rate, to stop all flights to and from affected countries?
Well, I hear what you say, Stuart, but that would mean stopping all transport to the United States of America, where I think they have an outbreak now in Texas.
We've got one person.
One person to Spain, where they've just got someone infected. I think there are measures in place to tackle this, and obviously I've been over this with our resilience people. We are as protected.
Sorry, our resilience people? Who are they?
Well, with the emergency services, with the London Health Board, where we're content as we can be that we have a measures in place.
I fly in from Liberia to Heathrow later today. Do I just walk straight through customs? I don't have any health screening.
Is that what you're intending to do?
No, but if I did, there's no screening currently.
Well, I am told, and I've sought reassurances on this, that we have measures in place that the best measures we can to
But what
protect
are
against.
these measures then?
Well, people who have been to, obviously we are advising people are advised not to go to affected areas.
No, but a plane will land from Liberia at Heathrow at some point today, I'm sure, and Sierra Leone. What happens is it disgorges 385 people into the airport, or however many it may be. What screening then takes place?
Well, I can't tell you the answer to that. I don't know exactly what screening that takes place at the airports or indeed anywhere else. What I'm told is that the authorities are content at the moment that there is no need to do what Stuart is suggesting, which is to put these entire countries into
Barack
Obama's
quarantine. Talking about screening there in the US, Mr. Mayor, isn't he?
Well,
not done it yet, but he's talking about it.
Let's see what they come up with and what they do. I mean, I must say, when I saw the news this morning about the incident in Spain, one's concern does start to rise, Nick. I won't hide it from you. I won't hide it from listeners. I will be seeking further information about what exactly we are going to be doing, because it is clear that the thing is very, very contagious and lethal, as Stuart says. I don't think, my judgment at the moment is, I think that a measure such as cutting off contact with these countries altogether would be extreme. I will make further inquiries about what we're doing to protect. But I'm sure that the information I have at the moment is that there's no panic.
Right.
If that changes, Captain Mannering,
you'll let me know.
I'll let you know. Stuart, if you need to panic, Nick.
Are you suitably reassured, as I'm sure the whole of the country is, Stuart?
I'm not assured at all. I'm not talking about when there's one outbreak. I'm talking about countries where it's in epidemic proportions. Even an 8-year-old said to me, why haven't they quarantined it? If an 8-year-old can come at it, why can't our government? They haven't got a clue. They're just overpaid bunch of imbeciles. They're just idiots. I just can't believe they're letting people in from countries where it's in epidemic proportions. And the fact that comes here, millions could die. And our government are doing nothing.
Well, I think to be fair, I think it is much. People are being advised not to go to Sierra Leone and other affected countries, and I think that there are certainly measures in place to make sure that people who are coming back from affected areas are properly checked. And
tell me about those measures then. What happens there then?
I can't get, as I said to
But
you just now.
there's nothing going on. People come back from Liberia and they just go in among their communities and go home.
Yeah. Well, I think
So you keep saying there are measures, and you've spoken with all we've spoken with my resilience people, which turns out to be presumably you spoke to a paramedic that you bumped into when you were roaming down Hampstead Heath, like Ed Miliband. So that is about as much as the foundation
I think Ed Miliband was on Primrose Hill.
To protect
Let's
our
be
great
accurate.
city.
He was roaming Primrose Hill, not Hampstead Heath. And I think it's important we should be accurate about these things, Nick. My alarm levels. I won't hide it from you. My alarm levels about this are rising a little bit because I've seen what's happened in the States.
That was fine until I spoke to you.
And I've seen what's happened in Spain. I think that I hear what you say. I don't think there's any need to cut these countries off. But we are certainly
resilience people know that it's fine.
They do. That's what they're. That's what they are assuring me.
Sounds like an episode of Doctor Who.
You sound like an episode of Dad's Army, led by what was the panicking guy called? He was Captain Marrow.
Don't panic, Mr. Corporal Jones.
Corporal Jones. You're the Corporal Jones of this outfit.
Well, I think you're a bit like Sergeant Wilson, to be honest. You're very well intentioned. You're doing rather well. No, not too strong on detail. Carry on, sir.
They don't like
Wilson.
it up them. That's what they. That's the fact of the matter. Nick, John in Devon.
Hi. How do you like your kippers, all right?
My kippers, I like my kippers.
Right.
I like my kippers
With you
on the plate. Go on.
Win
For
3
breakfast
MPs
is the answer.
for the next election.
Yes.
Why shouldn't the electorate vote UKIP and at the next general election and vote UKIP? You get UKIP.
Well, John, because I don't think that's the reality. If I look at the polls that I've seen, no matter how strong UKIP is performing in some parts of the country, there's absolutely no way on earth they're going to get more than, I think, 1 seat or something like that at the general election. And indeed, I think it quite likely that at the general election they will be wiped out, so that any gains they make in the current crop of by-elections, and I suppose it's conceivable they might win something, they will lose. And all they can do is take votes away from the only party, which is the Conservative Party, who are actually going to deliver a referendum. And John, if you want that, if you want a vote on Europe, then that's what you got to go for.
No, they won't.
Yes,
they
will.
had every chance when Sir James Goldsmith had a referendum party to give us a referendum on Europe. They never have.
Well, that was because Sir James Goldsmith, rather like UKIP, didn't get anywhere. And
he wanted a referendum on Europe.
Yes, John, you're right, John. Of course, you're right.
But he's been going on and on and on.
No, you're right about Sir James Goldsmith.
People vote for the same old parties: Labour, Liberal. Conservative.
Are we here? Let's hear from the Mayor, John. You're still on the line.
I'm with John in one way. I mean, there was a party called the Referendum Party, led by Jimmy Goldsmith, and the trouble with that party, it was in 1997. It didn't get anywhere. All it did was it did rather what UKIP is doing. It took votes away from the Conservatives, who are the only party who can actually, on this particular occasion, then in 97, John, the Tories weren't committed to a referendum. Now we are. And we are saying that we want reform, we want our borders brought back under sensible controls. We're saying that we want reform of the CAP and various other things. And David Cameron, I think, is the only leader in Europe who's capable of delivering that.
Come next year's general election, Mr. Mayor, how worried are you that you might go to bed with Nigel Farage and wake up with Ed Miliband?
I think that, I think the Prime Minister was obviously speaking figuratively. I sincerely hope so. And I think that obviously that is the risk. That's the problem. The problem is that you vote for Farage, you get Miliband, and that is the tragedy. Because in many ways, look, there are things that I agree with what Nigel Farage says. I think he seems to have some some of the right approach to many issues, but he is.
Which issues?
Well, I'm just trying to think. Actually, now you say that, I can't remember.
Well,
he's quite a low tax. He's a low tax sort of guy, isn't he?
I would imagine
I think he's a low tax. I think he's anti-regulation.
What are the issues that appeal to you? You just said that.
I think he's that sort of.
It's not my job to prompt you now. You said that they appeal to you. What is it from his message that you like?
I think it's that sort of thing. I mean, to be honest, the last thing I can remember was that he wanted all taxi drivers to wear liveried uniforms. But that's not a policy, obviously, I agree with. I don't think would be possible with that. That doesn't appeal to me.
So what are the policies that do appeal?
I think that he's right to want a referendum on Europe. And I think that is something that the country needs.
He wants to come out of Europe, doesn't
deserves. He? Well, there's only one way to do that, and that's to put it to the people. And that's what I'm certainly agreed on. I think there should be an in-out referendum. So that's a pretty big item of agreement between me and Mr. Farage. I also agree. I think something that perhaps is not obvious to those in Labour seats who are thinking of voting for UKIP. He's a low tax sort of guy, and he's a small state sort of guy, and that also obviously.
So that's why it's appealed to some Conservatives, I imagine.
I imagine that there's an element of that. But as I say, my answer to John is very simple, that he, alas, for all the slightly interesting things that he may be saying from time to time, he isn't going to deliver the goods. And all he'll do is stop the Tory party from being in a position to do that. Anyway, we're going to go to...
Can I have one final question?
Come on.
Clacton by-election. Douglas Carswell wins for UKIP. How does that change the political landscape?
Well, let's see what happens. I think we'll fight them on the beaches of Clacton. This is on Thursday at the Clacton on Sea by-election. We'll see what happens. I think that it will be a kind of small earthquake in Chile. If it won't necessarily change the price of fish. We'll have to it'll be obviously a disappointment if we don't win for the Conservatives, but we'll fight again, and there's always a general election to contest it again.
Right. What's the name of your candidate out there at Clacton?
We've got a fantastic guy called he's a superb man, Sterling Girling, something like that. What's he called? You tell me. Giles. Come on, what is it again?
Giles, the bread actor. Do you remember the star from Bread?
No,
not
at all.
Right, we'll take another call then, don't worry. See if you can get it. No,
tell me the name. Come on.
Get it. No, see if it's
Stop sitting there like a great big fat Buddha and tell me the name of this guy.
Don't just get personal, Mr. Mayor.
Come on.
I wonder if we could go to the next caller. It's not Sterling. You're very close.
Well, he's only just been adopted, and I'm sure he'll do absolutely brilliant.
He was adopted about 3 weeks ago.
I'm sure he'll do absolutely.
Giles Watling.
Giles Watling. That's right. Well, I knew it. Something to do with Ling. Anyway, Tingaling. Giles Watling. Okay.
Giles Tingaling Watling. We move elsewhere.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. You got me there. Well done. None of your. Okay, Sophia. We go to Sophia in Tower Hamlets.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Hello.
Good morning.
Hello. It's such an honour to speak to both of you, especially Nick Ferrari, who warms up all my emotions in the morning.
Oh, Sophia, that's so kind of you. Thank you so much. Lovely to talk, but you're through to the important man. You're through to the mayor.
I am indeed, Mr. Boris. Mr. Boris, I wanted to sort of bring, I guess you are aware of the situation in terms of young people being radicalised in so close to home. How do we stop young people from being radicalised? As we all are aware of what's happened in Bristol recently.
Yeah. Well, Sophia, I think this is one of those issues that I think you've got to look at the emotions of the young people concerned and what's attracting them to this stuff. And very often it is, the sorts of problems they have in their lives are the same kinds of things that can lead them into gang crime or drugs or whatever. It's lack of self-esteem, needing a story, and needing something that they can feel proud of in their lives, something dramatic, something exciting. And that is very often what the radicalizers are doing. That's the emotional need that they're satisfying. And we need to think of ways of making sure that we're getting to those kids in the same way that the police and all the social services, all the agencies concerned, deal with all kids who are similarly vulnerable. I don't think there's something unique about kids who are at risk of Islamic radicalization. And yes, I mean, it's vital to work with mosques. It's vital to work with everybody who's in Muslim communities who can make a difference, the parents and so on. But I think it's you've got to see it as part of the holistically. It's got to be done by all the social services, everybody, the police, everybody responsible for those kids together. That's the way to address it.
Sophia?
I mean, I guarantee you that if you were to ask the social services and all those mainstream providers and all the people that you've mentioned now, I guarantee they'll probably say, yes, we've got systems in place to ensure that doesn't happen. But clearly what we can see is it does happen. So whatever we're doing now currently doesn't work, and we need to ensure that we prevent young people from being radicalised. And I think we have to be unique and we have to be creative in the way in which we provide that prevention.
Yes.
So I think I work in the London Borough of Tower Hamlets, and I work for a Somali women's organisation by the name of Somali Integration Team. And you know, when you talk, and I think especially within, I mean, I can only sort of talk about the Somali community, which is the area that I work in, but if you talk to those mothers who have so many issues in terms of barriers of language, barriers in terms, I mean, they've got large number of families, they're single, one of the highest numbers of single mothers in our borough, and in terms of you know, not having support from the father figure, so not having father figures there. So with those barriers and those challenges, and they're described as being the hardest to reach community, so I can describe a number of different issues that make them a bit more, you know, give the, you know, the same that the mothers have, not just them, other mothers do, but they do have a lot on their plate.
Yeah, well, listen, I mean, I think the work that you're doing is, I'm sure, fantastic, and I thank you for it, and I congratulate you on what you're doing. Obviously, it is also true, though, that there would be plenty of people, young men and indeed young women, who are well educated, who have good command of English, who are capable of getting good jobs, and who are still being radicalised. So, although I gave a general answer about the most vulnerable kids, there is a further problem to do with the kind of stuff that's out there on the internet, the way that a warped version of Islam can catch on in people's minds, and we really need to be onto that as well. And that is very, very challenging and very tough for us, but it needs to be fought the whole time.
Let's move on to other callers. Sophia, thank you. Where are we going next, Mr. Mayor?
We're going now to David in Raynham.
Oh, good morning, Boris.
Good morning, David.
Good morning, Nick. Yes,
Hello,
I listened to all the speeches, Boris, and I wasn't really impressed. In fact, I thought it was hugely mean-spirited of David Cameron not to include Nick Clegg in his menage a trois fantasy. I mean, he could have at least squeezed him in there as the diaphragm.
Yes. Sorry, I don't think I caught that last bit about somebody was using a diaphragm. Did you say?
Well, you could have got him in there.
I'm getting it. I think that
too much of an image.
Too much. Yeah. I can't cope with it this time in the morning. I think that the interesting thing about Nick Clegg is he's had a pretty rough ride in government, and he's had to break virtually every promise he's made, and now he seems to be presenting himself again to the electorate as this sort of Janus-faced politician. He goes both ways. He can plug into either appliance. He can do Labour coalition. He can do Tory coalition. Well, what does he stand for? Are we saying we've got to a situation now in British politics where whatever you vote for, you get Lib Dems? I mean, it's completely crazy. In my view, what we should have is an outright Conservative majority, and that will mean we don't have to worry about the Clegger. And he can have more time to come on your show,
well,
Nick.
You can
get daily. You can have daily, call Clegg daily, hourly. You can have every hour on the hour, call Clegg. James,
even through the midnight hours.
Yeah, that's right. He'll be 24 hours of Clegg. 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, Clegg.
LB Clegg.
Fantastic, LB Clegg.
Yes, indeed.
It's absolutely superb.
On we go to other
London's biggest Clegg. We go now to James in
leading Britain's Clegg. Leading Britain's Clegg. Yes.
Superb. We go to James in Marylebone.
James, you're on the radio. Go ahead with your question, sir. You're through to Mayor Johnson.
Yeah, I drive for a living, Mr. Johnson, and I'm concerned about how you're going to jam London up with this cycle route. I mean, the traffic lights are bad enough as it is, and take for example the embankment by Northumberland Avenue. For years, I thought it narrows down to one lane.
Yeah.
It could quite easily, where the coaches park, it causes massive tailbacks. It could quite easily take some of the pavement out and push a coach across, so it parks there and you've got 2 lanes through.
Yeah.
Nothing is done to free traffic up. Everything is done to make traffic more difficult, and create more congestion. And the other thing, has nobody ever heard of sequential lighting? Where if you could advertise, do 30, get green. Lights are sequenced, so you go through one light green, next light is red.
Yes.
It causes massive problems, and Livingston was the one who made the lights red for longer.
He did. Well, yes, he did.
That, traffic is much worse.
We've tried to smooth the traffic as much as we can, and we did rephase about 1,000 traffic lights, James, to try and ease your life and those of motorists across the city. The trouble we've got now is basically the economy is recovering very strongly, and the numbers of people on the roads, vans and so on, particularly white vans, with all this internet delivery, are rising very sharply. We've got to cope with that. And yes, I am looking at traffic lights, James. I'm going to have another blitz on them. I want to see what we can do. I want to see whether we need to, for instance, run traffic lights in the middle of the... Do they need to be there in the middle of the night? Are there things we can do to...
you might switch, as they do in other European cities. You're considering switching off the lights.
We're looking at
night.
that. We're looking at that. I mean, all these
and
things
rephasing.
All these things have counter arguments. Particularly, our traffic engineers do not want, James. I absolutely promise you. I've sat there. I've watched the modelling. I've watched the flows. These guys really don't want to paralyse London. They want to keep London moving. It is, we've got massive pressure on space. Now, you mentioned the east-west cycle superhighway. And, again, I've got to be honest with you and say that is something that is going to put a lot of pressure on the road space. Now, the challenge for us is...
Are you going ahead with this, then?
The challenge... Well, we are consulting on the scheme, and the consultation is open until the 9th of October, and I think it closes about then.
I think you mean November.
No, sorry, 9th of November.
That's
Forgive me,
yeah,
9th of November. And it will... obviously we'll see what people say.
There's a lot of opposition, Mr. Mayor.
There is a lot of
George
opposition.
Jacobescu from Canary Wharf doesn't agree with it.
No, listen, I mean...
And normally you're a friend of business, so why are you ignoring Canary Wharf on this occasion?
Well, I'm not ignoring anybody because we're in the middle of a consultation.
Westminster Council doesn't like it.
Well, that's actually...
the Deputy Leader of the Council was talking to me earlier this morning, so I happen to know what he thinks about it.
Right, well, funny enough, I had the Leader of the Council in yesterday afternoon, and she's...
I'm so sorry, she likes
She's very much in favour.
She's in favour of it?
She is, yes, but because...
To reducing the Victoria Embankment to one lane, each way, obviously.
Well, certainly she didn't register any particular oppositions to that aspect of the scheme. But what I will say is that, this is a...
You're going to have one lane going from Canary Wharf
scheme
all the way to
under
Marble
consultation.
Arch. One lane.
That I don't believe is
18 miles. I've got the modelling in front of me. It goes from Canary Wharf down Lower Thames Street, up through the... I've got the picture in front of me. There's an entire carriageway for cycles. There's a coach. I presume that's... So the coaches only go one way, do they? I don't know. They seem to be going east-west.
The coaches are taken out. James, for instance, mentions the coaches parked along the left-hand side of the embankment as you go west.
Which is from your website. What happens if this car breaks down? I'm now showing to the Mayor. So effectively the embankment now is 4 carriageways. There's one that is solely for bicycles, then there's a fairly chunky pavement in between it, and there's all the Barclays or Boris bike hires. Then there's another carriageway which just has coaches in it, and they're going, let me get this right, east-west. And then you've got a lane for regular cars going east-west and cars going west-east. What happens when one of those cars breaks down?
This is out for consultation. Let me tell you.
That's my consultation. What happens when that car there, being driven by that fella, what happens when that breaks down?
Well,
This is the embankment, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, and the scheme is very widely supported by businesses in London, by the way.
Tell me their names.
There is loads of businesses. I think Deloitte...
presumably the road build business and people who put tarmac on the roads, they quite like it, and Murphys and all those people and the others and Conways who build roads.
They always like us because our job is to invest in roads, and that's what we're doing. Now, before you freak out completely, let me just say that this is a scheme that is highly popular with a large majority of the people who've been consulted so far. Loads of businesses actually do like it. I understand what some businesses are saying, and we're listening. I'm not going to pretend to you that we're wedded to. I don't want to inflict misery on drivers where it's
honestly.
Not necessary.
What do you think that will do with the embankment? This is your own imaging. This is your own picture.
We will do our absolute best to mitigate any bad results from this scheme. But there is huge pressure. I mean, come on, Nick.
I know you are to motoring what Ed Miliband is to giving speeches.
I'm the former motoring correspondent of GQ magazine. I won't have that from you. I'm an avid motorist.
How long did that last?
Years and years. Yes, I could send you a volume of my collected...
I'd rather you didn't. I've had to read one of your books. That
rubbish.
Took long enough.
I'll send you
I'm glad you agree. It was rubbish. But seriously, that is unworkable. That's the embankment.
Well, you're most welcome to. I'm sure that TfL will be listening to your remarks, and there will be.
I'll go for a bus drive with Sir Peter.
This will be taken down and enter the consultation.
This coach only goes east-west, then presumably this coach lane, this bus lane here, which has got two coaches. This is obviously the east. This is the west because there's the river. So here's
the
Big
Victorian
Ben.
embankment. That's just outside Westminster, isn't it? As far as I can see.
Yeah. So the coach only goes east-west. Take your own picture and tell me. So that what happens with coaches who want to go the other way?
No. There's plenty of room for traffic there. There's plenty of room for traffic there.
Don't be misleading. There's three lanes for cars.
By the way, if I may say so, you're focusing on the least controversial bit of the scheme.
Oh, tell me where it gets worse.
And this is actually I think by common consent. I was interested about what you said about Westminster Council, because Westminster Council actually doesn't mind this bit at all. The most difficult bit, let's be clear, is the bit from Tower Hill through to Blackfriars. That's the really tricky bit, right? And we're looking at it. We're going to try and do.
Well, how are you going to make that work?
Well, we are going to use all our ingenuity, all our resources, the genius of our traffic modelers to try and make it work. We may have to.
Why this obsession with cycling, Mr. Mayor?
Well, how often have you sat me here? Or rather, have I sat you here, or however you want to express it? We've had conversations about cycling safety in London.
Yes.
Do you remember what it was? Do you remember last November?
Yep. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't mean you inconvenience the entire city as a result.
Well, you've got to make cycling safer, and it's a very clear demand, not just of people who cycle, but also of motorists. They don't want the anxiety, the stress of.
No, but they want to be worrying. You don't
about,
think this will give them stress?
We are going to make sure that the.
Let me replay some of your words.
The delay.
There is a massive pressure on space. All the internet delivery we've got to cope with. This city is coming back. It's coming out. It's more white vans are out there. This is your words. You said to me the other day, more white vans are out there, and as a result, you're going to take a carriageway out.
And that particular configuration of the East-West Cycle Superhighway does involve. Some radical changes to the carriageway.
So all the internet delivery we've got to cope with, massive pressure on space, you're going to take a carriageway out.
We are consulting on the scheme, and it is very popular with a large number of people. I do keep saying that, but what I'm also saying...
Andrew Gilligan probably likes it.
And what I'm also saying, what I'm also saying is that sometimes cities have to do big things. They have to change the way things work in order to promote a healthier, cleaner... way of getting around.
Lastly, are we going to have to redo Parliament Square? Isn't that going to have to be reconfigured?
Not as far as I'm aware. I mean, I get back to that, Nick. I don't think we're
better move on. There are other matters, but we've got a reporter down talking to people to see what they make of that. Perhaps we'll talk to him a little bit later. Mr. Mayor, we must move on.
Come on, let's go to Claire in Reigate.
We've lost Claire in Reigate.
We lost Claire in Reigate. She didn't want to hear it, but because you started ranting in this crazed way about our cycle superhighway that she thought.
If you think that was a rant, you're not listening enough. Frank asks, why is it legal for Boris bike riders to listen to earphones while biking?
I hate it. Who says this, Frank?
This is Frank.
Well, Frank is right. Frank, I know this is something that really militant cyclists don't agree with me about. But I absolutely think I think it's completely nuts to cycle around London.
Is it legal?
It is currently legal.
That's extraordinary.
But we discourage it. I've spoken out against it several times.
Can't you talk to Sir Bernard Hogan?
I think it's deeply irresponsible because these cyclists go incredibly fast. They've got their headphones on, and they they are putting them. They're not just putting themselves at risk.
Are you paying due care and attention if you're riding a bicycle and not listening? Are you sure it's legal?
I think that's a matter for the individual officer concerned. I think that's a judgment that the.
I wouldn't have thought you're paying due care and attention. Surely, if you're being hooted at. And you're busy listening to LBC on your headphones.
Yeah, sure.
Listening to Cleggy.
We could let. Well, actually, you're putting a thought in my head. I mean, I think it's as far as I know at the moment, the police don't think that it constitutes a breach of the law.
Well, I think it does. I don't think you're paying due care and attention.
Well, learned Ferrari, Ferrari QC thinks it's.
15 minutes to go. We pause briefly for some news here. Ask Boris rests while news is transmitted on LBC.
Interrupting me.
London's Mayor Boris Johnson has told LBC he's becoming more concerned about Ebola.
There are measures in place to tackle this, and I've been over this with our resilience people. What I'm told is that the authorities are content at the moment that there is no need to do what Stuart is suggesting, which is to put these entire countries into quarantine.
People are being urged not to panic after a nurse in Spain became the first person to contract the virus outside of West Africa. She treated 2 patients with the disease in Madrid last month. Commuters in London are facing 2 days of disruption next week after the RMT union called a 48-hour tube strike. Tuesday's walkout is in a long-running row over ticket office closures. Islamic State militants have taken control of 3 parts of a key strategic Syrian town on the Turkish border. They are fighting Kurdish forces for control of Kobani. NATO has told Turkey it will be protected if it comes under attack from IS. A major new study into cannabis has found it can be as addictive as heroin. The British research over a 20-year period links long-term use with mental illness, poor academic achievement and reduced birth weights. At 9:15, the FTSE was down 20 at 65.43. And LBC weather. Heavy showers clearing London and the southeast to leave a dry and bright day. Highs of 15 Celsius. Similar picture across most of the UK. Sunny spells moving across eastern and central England, Wales and Northern Ireland. Rain and strong winds in northern and eastern Scotland. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Lisa Aziz.
I'm Andy McCall in the LBC Travel Centre. Still major problems on the M4 coming into town. The closure remains at Junction 5 at Langley. It's all after an accident involving 2 vans, 2 cars and a big diesel spill in the carriageway as well. You're still being diverted with the excellent entrance at roads and the queues beyond Junction 8-9 at Maidenhead. Going west on the M4. Now, we've had this problem through the last few hours as well. Through Junction 6 at Slough, just the inside lane open. A3 going away from town between Malden Junction and Tolworth. Still some congestion after an accident earlier on, but the lane closure now cleared. Twickenham and the A305 King Street still lane closure eastbound at Cross Deep for emergency repairs after a water main burst yesterday. Congestion on the M23 in both directions in the roadworks Junction 9 to 8 as Gatwick and the M25. At Ware on the A10 going north, it's now closed at the A602, the Stevenage turnoff, and that's after an accident with congestion back down towards the Hertford turn. And for the trains, Greater Anglia, disruption about 25 minutes extra on your journey between Hackney Downs and Liverpool Street. Keeping London moving. Your next travel update is in 15 minutes.
LBC Travel.
With Go-To Meeting. Meet face-to-face without travelling place to place.
This is Ask Boris on LBC.
So let's come back
to now to Sean in Harrow.
Well, we do so. I wonder if I can just briefly.
Yes.
Just earlier in the show, and I'm sure you are already aware, there is the possibility of a tube strike. Indeed, it would happen on the night shift in exactly a week's time, is my understanding. I spoke with John Leach, who's London organiser and lead negotiator for the RMT. Here's a little of what he said, Mr. Mayor.
Get his managers back round the table with us and enable them to reverse these cuts with us through discussion. We want to resolve this dispute. The people of London need a better tube than what they're offering at the moment, and we are willing to sit down and sort this out. But one thing we can't do is have every single ticket office closed permanently and a reduction of just under 900 jobs. It's just simply not fair on London, and it's certainly not fair on the staff who work there.
Mr. Mayor.
Well, we think this is an entirely political action. This is all to do with a national day of action on the 18th of October, I think it is or coming up soon.
The dispute is on the 14th.
Well, they've got some big sort of national campaign. There is no reason for this strike at all, and we think
so. They're going to strike on the 18th as well.
I don't know. Maybe it's the 14th. Okay. At any rate, it's timed to coincide with some national protest. This is entirely political. They need to. Frankly, I think they should get a new ballot on. This is just the RMT. This is. Don't forget what happened was Bob Crow died. There was then an election which was won by a guy who, by the standards of the RMT, we think is quite moderate. A guy called Mick Cash. And what you just heard is John Leach, who's one of the hard cases. And I think they're trying to test out this guy, Mick Cash, and say, have you got the bottle to have another strike? There's absolutely no need for it. Whatever it will achieve, nothing. Londoners will know that this will achieve absolutely nothing at all, except inconvenience, I'm afraid, to the travelling public. We will go ahead with the reform of the ticket office closures and so on, and everybody knows that. And I challenge John Leach and Mick Cash and the rest of the RMT, get a new ballot. Have a new ballot. This is ages since this came up. This is all timed to coincide with this political action by the unions. have a new ballot of your members and see whether they genuinely support a strike action that will cost them money, cost them pay, and achieve absolutely nothing.
We move to other calls. Mr. Mayor, where are we going?
We are going to Sean in Harrow.
Hi, Boris. Hi, Nick.
Hello, Sean.
Thanks very much. Thanks. Boris, this actually links into, as somebody who lives in Harrow, I live in a one-bedroom flat, but I realised quite a while ago that the council tax that I'm paying is equivalent to the second highest band that somebody would be paying living in Westminster. As somebody who lives in Harrow, I have to travel into central London every day. If you combine that, it's
well. You need to vote in a Tory council, if I may say so. That's the number one. That's what you need to do. That is the problem. Westminster keeps their council tax low because they run their services very efficiently.
But as you can imagine, though, it's quite frustrating when you look at travelling into London. My travel card on a monthly basis has gone up by 26% since 2008, since when you came in. Also, when you link that with bus ticket prices have gone up by almost 66% since when you came in. It affects the disposable income. Everything seems to be getting worse and worse. And obviously, with this proposed increase in fuel prices in January, which is going to be 1% above the RPI increase, do you not think that's a little bit unfair on those?
No, it's not going to be 1% above the RPI, and we're holding it down at RPI. And as we did last year, so that's not right, Sean. And obviously these are very difficult decisions. When we hold fares down at RPI, it means that we have to find further savings, further economies elsewhere. It means obviously we have to think hard about what we do with upgrades of the tube. It makes it more difficult to do some of the good things we're doing. Next year, from September, we'll have the first 24-hour tube in the life of this city, which will be a great thing. That's what Londoners want, but we're able to do that only if we are able to manage our fares sensibly. We are holding them down to RPI. Obviously, look, your general point is the correct one. I'm not going to hide it from you. Yes, the cost of living in London is very high. That's what you're saying to me, and I completely understand that, and I agree with that. People, we are suffering at the moment from being the most successful, most popular city on earth. There's no question. Everybody in the UK would like to live here, or loads of people in the UK would like to live here. People around the world want to live in London. That drives up prices. It makes it less affordable. And if we're going to modernise the transport, that puts huge pressure on our transport networks. You look at the numbers of people on the tube at the moment, Sean. If you use it in the morning, it's crowded, and that is something we have to deal with. We can deal with it by putting in new track, new signalling, new trains, getting the trains faster through the tunnel. But you can't do that if you don't have the money to pay for it. And that's why we've managed a steady system of fare packages, and I haven't sort of leapt around hiking them up massively and then freezing them. I've gone for a steady approach, and I try to be absolutely clear with Londoners about what our objective is. But believe me, we have, if you look at the fat we've cut out of TfL, some people worry about, are we being ruthless enough with TfL budgets, but we've cut huge numbers of employees at TfL. You just heard the argument I've had about the ticket offices. These are difficult things that you have to do, but you have to modernise, and that means cutting costs.
All right. Oh, you've talked a little bit about Nick Clegg. Are you aware the Lib Dems are heading for a possible U-turn over their opposition to airport expansion, Mr. Mayor? The party has been committed to a blanket ban on the construction of any new runways. Now it appears as though Gatwick could be exempted. Indeed, there's a motion that will go before their conference in Glasgow, and the idea is that perhaps they would look favourably on Gatwick. Your reaction to that?
Well, I think that is interesting. It may or may not be connected with the fact that Vince Clegg is MP for Twickenham. And
Vince Clegg.
Vince Cable. Good God, Vince Clegg. God, Vince Cable. You know what I mean. Vince Clegg. He's a terrifying amalgam. Vince Clegg is the ultimate figure of nightmares. He's immense. He's immensely left wing and wants to damage business, but he's also somehow apologetic at the same time. And
with a fragrant wife.
That's right. He keeps apologising for everything he wants to do to British. That's who Vince Clegg is.
Yes.
Anyway.
Coming back to
the Lib Dems and what they want to do with Gatwick, you're completely right. What is going on there is fascinating. Vince Cable, as he's correctly called, is the MP for Twickenham, and they don't want to do Heathrow. They know Heathrow's a disaster area. It's politically undeliverable. Like many people, their eyes are swivelling towards Gatwick, and they're thinking, well, look, that's the logical thing. The planning permission comes up in 2019 or whenever it is. You can do a second runway there. Why not make that the London's second big hub? Well, you could do that.
Yes.
Yes.
And how does Mayor Johnson view this?
Well, obviously it's outside the Greater London area. So, but the people of West Sussex may have strong views about it.
But at least it will get another. Let's just get it done. What it doesn't do is answer the exam question. It doesn't give you the hub capacity you need. All that would happen, in my view, is that all the planes, all the big airlines would continue to want to go to Heathrow. Heathrow would remain massively congested, still trying to put a quart into a pint pot, if not more, because that's the hub. Yes, you might rearrange things a bit to take the pressure off, but in the end, you're going to need a bigger and a proper hub. And I think actually the argument will come back again to the estuary solution. I really do. That is the one that's been ruled out from the Davis report.
That is the only long-term.
The one that's actually been ruled out. You want to bring it back in?
I think it will be brought out.
For the love of God, let's just get a decision.
But it may be. You may be right. We may be about to go for Gatwick. It may be that there's a general sort of glutinous political consensus forming about that. Let's see what happens.
Yes.
I think that doesn't answer the question. I think it will be bitterly resented by the people of West Sussex. It will involve a huge amount of noise there, and it doesn't do the job.
Just before we go to the next call, how concerned should we be? Taking you a little bit out of your brief, but you'll have seen the morning paper's front page of the Daily Telegraph, a very gloomy picture of the black flag of ISIL flying within a mile or so of the Turkish border, Mr. Mayor.
It is deeply depressing. I was one of those, and I still am, who think that you have to try to do something. It may be, in other words, I support the idea of trying to neutralise ISIS through ISIL, Daesh, whatever they're called, through airstrikes. If that doesn't work,
airstrikes what? Everywhere in Syria as well.
Well, yes, logically, I've got no reason. I can't see why you wouldn't do it there as well, because they don't obey boundaries between the two.
Syria might have a view on that, of course.
Well, they might, but
we still just bomb them.
If the mission is to curtail the operations of ISIL, then I don't think it makes much sense to confine your activities to Iraq. Though I know that there are hesitations about Syria for one reason or another. What I would say is that we are probably coming to at some stage, we're going to get to a position where everybody is going to start saying that we will need some sort of ground deployment. And, there I really must say I'm very hesitant. I'm still very hesitant about that. I can't, we've been here so many times before. What have we really achieved? If it isn't working instantly if the current tactics aren't instantly working, I don't think we should necessarily abandon them instantly. Right. Let's keep going.
Let's get one more call in if we can.
Who is it? Aldi?
That's it.
Aldi? Or...
Yes, hi.
Hello.
Yes, Aldi. Good morning, Mr. Mayor. Thank you so much for taking my call. And I apologize if my English is not very good.
No, it sounds excellent.
It's better than Boris.
It's better than ours.
If I may, I would like I have two requests and then one question. My requests are, one of them is if you could be very kind and put signs on all the buses saying that you are allowed to travel with pets on a bus.
Signs saying you can travel with a pet.
Yep. Is a very, very important request that people shouldn't put their dirty shoes on top of seats.
Yes.
And that is very, very important. You should, all the buses should have a sign and penalties. Yeah. And then my question is regarding the design of the new buses. I am talking on behalf of all the commuters because I travel on route number 10, and very well is the new design. Yeah. And the people complain. I felt very ill traveling a few days ago because the bus driver, I asked him to switch on the air conditioner, and he couldn't. He didn't know how to do it.
Right.
So
and
you want windows? You want windows?
Because there's no windows. You cannot
Okay.
open the windows.
Yeah.
And the back door is very dangerous because when the door opens, if you don't know,
Yes,
you can,
could fall off.
get stuck there. It's
Hold it,
very
it's
dangerous.
my fault.
And
I
what
have.
are you going to do?
Okay, you
Okay,
can
Aldi,
stay on
right,
the line.
several-
So we
several
want
points
signs
there.
say, can
I-
you take pets on buses?
I don't see any reason why you can't take pets on buses.
Well, you can
I
take your
always-
horse on the bus.
I don't see why not.
I could take a
Horses used to pull buses after all.
Well, I know
don't
what
see-
one reporter's doing tomorrow.
You see what happens if you try and take your horse on a bus. I think a reasonable sized pet. I don't see why you shouldn't take a reasonable sized pet on a bus. I mean,
Like a
and
Great
horse-
Dane?
Well, I don't know how big. I mean, I think it's probably up to the bus driver to decide how big is reasonable. All right, but if it's a nice, well, your little Chihuahua or whatever you have, your pixie frou dog that you carry, I'm sure your little Bichon Frise will be okay. On the shoes,
Signs, yes,
the
that seems a
shoes
good
thing,
idea.
yeah, that's a really good point, Aldi. I can't stand. I mean, I've actually sometimes I have to confess, in my youth, I may once have allowed my feet to stray briefly onto the seat opposite. I think it's a terrible thing to do, if because it can leave a mess on the seats. And so we do actively discourage it, and if we can put some signs up or something like that, we will certainly look into that. I know that Leon Daniels and Peter Hendy are totally against that sort of thing, and there are plenty of signs about encouraging good behaviour on buses. On the Route 10 and the aircon, I will immediately get onto it, and we will see what we can do.
You'll see if the windows can be opened.
We will see what we can. We will see what with the. She said that the driver couldn't work the aircon.
But what about the passengers being able to open windows?
Well, that, as you know, is
how hard is that?
There are good reasons why this beautiful and brilliant design does not currently permit
have a window that opens.
that elementary function. But
something we can consider.
But I will certainly look at what we can do to improve climatic conditions on the.
Lastly, Rachel in Bexley. Boris Johnson, you're a journalist. You've been having a go at Nick Clegg, but at least he's supportive of the idea of stopping the police using terror laws to spy on journalists and go through news desks'
I agree with that,
logs with Reaper. What do you say as a journalist?
Yeah, well, I am concerned about this, and I want to look into this because the moment it should not be possible. I don't think for the police just to go on fishing expeditions and see what journalists have been doing, who they've been calling. As Rachel will, I'm sure, know, what the police cannot do is access the actual content of the messages. They can't listen to what you say. They can't read your text. What they can at the moment do, I understand, is see when and where a contact was made. So
should they have which number? Like a reporter?
Well, I don't think it should.
Political editor of the Sun.
I don't think it should be. I think when you're investigating a criminal case and when there are quite serious charges at stake, then the use of such techniques, I think, may be justifiable. What I don't think
so they were right to go through Tom Newton-Dunn's phone, were they, for Plebgate?
Well, I don't know what aspects of it they were investigating, but there obviously was some quite serious.
Well, they wanted to know where the Sun journalists had got their information.
There were charges there there were suggestions there that there was a conspiracy by armed officers at the gates.
Well, they were trying to seek a source, weren't they? I'll tread carefully here, but they were trying to seek a source, and they found a source by going through the phone of a journalist. That's acceptable in your world, is it?
Well, the police have a duty to try to use their to track down,
to go fishing through a political editor's phone.
Was it? You see, that's where I think I might disagree. Was it fishing, or were they trying to get to the bottom of the guilt or otherwise?
Well, get to the bottom it was a coverall, isn't it?
Well, hang on. There were very serious charges here, which as I recall, involved the potential conspiracy by a group of police officers with weapons at the gate, to frame or defame a minister, or alternatively that minister had lied, and so on and so forth. In either event, it was a serious business, and if the police have. If they are within the law, as they seem to be,
I'm staggered that you think Reaper can be used for that. That's an anti-terror act, Mr. Mayor. Nothing to do with going through a political editor's mobile phone.
The Reaper's not an anti-terror act, as far as I know. It's designed.
Regulation of Investigatory Powers Act was not. I always thought it was an anti.
I don't think it's specific. I mean, I think it's
brought in.
I think it's designed to create a framework.
Phone books.
No, it's designed to create a framework for because obviously the state is very powerful, and
too powerful. Some might argue.
And it should not be able to. To look at what journalists are saying. It shouldn't be able to look at the text. What they can do, as I understand it at the moment, is look at when and where and how a call was made. All I would say, without getting to the details of the particular case, and maybe it might be in that case they went too far. I mean, I haven't studied it, I'm afraid to say, in great detail.
Right.
But if there are serious criminal charges at stake, it seems to me that it's not unreasonable to use the powers that they have.
We must leave it there for time reasons. We've kept you too long. Thank you. Ask Boris has been on LBC. Coming up after Travel Update, Carol Vorderman telling us all about the great Daily Mirror Pride of Britain Award. Stay tuned for that.
I'm Adam McCall in the LBC Travel Centre. The M4 in Berkshire still closed going east towards London at Junction 5 at Langley. It's all after an accident earlier involving